This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Find great deals faster.
Hello and welcome to the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. This podcast is designed by real people on their journey to achieving financial freedom, and we'll focus on people who've either already attained it, who are joining us on that journey, or maybe a specialist topic that can help you build your technical knowledge to achieving and maintaining that financial freedom. We hope you enjoy it. Hi folks, and welcome back to the Financial Freedom Podcast. Today is one of our 6 rounds with episodes where we interview somebody who is either on the way to or has already achieved financial freedom. Today is also a case study because it's one of our PPB clients, and we would like to welcome Simon Kite to the show. Welcome, Simon.
Welcome. Nice to be with you both.
Nervous? Okay.
Good.
Good.
Thanks for coming. Absolutely fine.
Yeah, good stuff.
Looking forward to it.
As your son said, down with the kids doing a podcast.
I know.
Yeah.
You made me very cool.
Very cool. That's good.
I told them I was doing a podcast.
Yeah, very good. Okay, so just to introduce Simon. Simon's a partner in the Manchester office of a well-known accountancy firm. Beyond professional life, 2 grown-up sons, 28, 26.
That's right.
And a stepson.
James, yeah.
And is anyone living at home still?
My 2 boys have left home.
Right.
I remarried in 2018. My second wife's son, Zach, is living at home.
Okay.
In the process of buying his own house. So in addition to financial freedom,
yeah,
I think domestic freedom.
Domestic freedom and financial freedom are quite sometimes, right? Yeah. But yeah, so welcome to the show. So we're going to start with a bit of an icebreaker, and this is something that you've done, which I think is pretty cool, to be fair, and it's something I've considered doing. And you've changed your name, not your family name or your first name, but you've changed your name by deed poll, and the reason for that is because you've done a DNA test.
I've done
tell me more about
DNA test through the Ancestry website. Other apps are available, obviously. But I took the plunge.
They're not going to come after you. No.
And there's a separate story we don't have time for today around discovering that I've got my mum has a half sister that she didn't know about as well.
All right,
that's a whole other story.
Right, interesting.
But doing the research on my mother's side, I realised there were many generations all in Brittany and France. They moved to Guernsey where my mum and my sister now live, and they're all called Pierre. And my mum's an only child. She's Patricia. I'm the firstborn. I'm called Simon. Her father was really disappointed that I wasn't called Pierre or Peter, and she didn't really understand why.
Right.
And when I'd done the ancestry research, I said, well, this is the reason why. You've broken the chain of Pierres. So I've re-established that legacy and added it as an extra middle name in recognition of that line of the family.
And you already had an interesting middle name.
Yeah, my middle name's Rollo.
Rollo.
Which I got a lot of ribbing at school for that, actually. Yeah.
Is that what people call
Rollo? King Rollo. Rollo is actually William the Conqueror's great-grandfather, Duke of Normandy.
Right.
Normans are Norsemen, they're Vikings, If I'd known that when I was at school, I might not have been bullied so much.
Well, if we'd have known you were French heritage, we probably would have invited you, Simon.
It's not as bad as being a twit. Come on, I think I copped a lot more in school with that name. Yeah,
I get that.
Yeah. There's lots of things you can do with Bygrave, though. There's lots of things. I get that. I used to get that a lot. Grave digger number was the main one. So good. Right. Okay. So we're going to dive into the questions.
Okay.
So the first one is just a more open question, which is a little bit about where you came, your history, your growing up, and that kind of thing. Then it's just simply tell me a story.
Okay. I've moved around a bit. My father was a pilot of British Airways. So I've lived in the south of England, had a spell back up here when I was a kid, back down south. So I've lived in Swansea and Guernsey and France and New Zealand, then Cambridge, and then back up to the northwest in 2005. So always moved around a bit. I'm here with my grown-up children, as you've said, and I'm remarried. My family is scattered around the world. So that traveling aspect has still been with the family, I guess. I am an accountant, as you say, so please forgive me for that. But
finance is important. We talk about that.
It's quite a good accountancy, though, right? It's not your average high street accountancy practice.
No, that's right. I have a huge variety of clients, all sorts of different sectors. Really great people to deal with. Every day is different.
Yeah.
Keeps me very busy. I do a lot of global travel in that role as well. I'm part of our global network. So, whilst my father was flying the planes around the world, I'm sat in the back enjoying myself with a glass of champagne. And seeing all exotic parts of the world, which I love.
Yeah, that is good. What about outside of work and life balance in terms of like anything you've done, sort of, is it charity works and stuff like that? I know you sponsor a charity as a business and things like that. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, work does various CSR stuff as you'd expect any national firm to be doing these days. So we do quite a bit with various people around social mobility, CV writing, and getting people into jobs, that kind of thing. And personally, I suppose as a little icebreaker question, one of the things I did for charity a while ago was run the London Marathon as dressed as Mr. Happy.
Nice.
For children with leukemia.
Excellent.
That was it's the one and only time I've done the London Marathon.
Oh,
if you're going to do it once, do it properly.
I think I've made my peace with never doing it.
Yeah. So I try. Work is very busy, so I try to make sure that I make time for the gym or swimming. I do a lot of tennis. We've got 2 dogs at home, so walking the dogs gets me out of the house with some fresh air. It's very easy, I think, just to get sucked into the work and not have
get consumed by it. You mean you need that.
There's always things to do.
Yeah, but we've known each other a little while as well, right? So you've always seemed to love what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So which is, I think, is a great start, isn't it? It doesn't fit. That is also, but that's also a problem. Because you have a family and a life, and then you love what you do, so it's difficult to stop focusing on one and focus on the other.
It is, and to be honest, for my first, it cost me my first marriage. If I'm honest, I think I was so focused on career and work, and we met quite young. It was a whirlwind romance, and got married straight away. And then I think we realised that career was really important to me, and perhaps there was too much focus on that, and not enough around the marriage and the family aspects of it. So she did a great job bringing up the kids, and I focused, I suppose, a lot more on my work and saw the kids when I could. And we still got a good relationship, and we went our separate ways, but we still get on, which is good. So I've kind of learned, I suppose, over the years, the importance of trying to get a better balance. But as you say, when you love what you do, you've always got a million things on your to-do list that you could do, and you want to do them because you want to get better and better.
Yeah, and that doesn't stop.
It doesn't stop, no.
Yeah, the to-do list never stops, does it? That's the problem.
No. Well, it's like if you keep adding to it, then it gets bigger.
I could work.
There's always ideas.
More
ideas of things to do.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
And I think the great thing is, because you've started an investment journey as well, and I think we won't share your age profile, but the good thing is that you've brought your family with you.
I have, yeah.
So tell us a bit, what was the thinking behind that?
Yeah, well, when you're a partner in a firm of accountants, let's be honest, the money's okay. So from my own financial freedom point of view, I can get to where I need to be during my life. We have to do it on your own. As a partner in a firm of accountants, you are self-employed. The company is not paying into a pension scheme for me. I have to have that discipline of putting money aside and investing it and building a pot of money for when I do retire. But I was very keen to use my position and the opportunity to give my 2 boys, Daniel and James, the financial freedom to allow them to do what they want to do and take some of the pressure off them. I was lucky my parents supported me at various stages in my life when I needed a bit of help, and I'm really keen to give the same helping hand to my 2 boys. So they're shareholders in my property investment business. The idea is to build a portfolio and an income stream for them, which then gives them a bit of peace of mind to just do what they want to do and have a good life.
Yeah, so cool, isn't it?
Really good, really good.
Lovely. So you've almost...
They're very lucky to have me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's similar to what I'm doing, to be fair. I haven't added them to the shareholders yet, but I've got several companies, that hold property, and one of them they'll be added to as shareholders.
Well, as my kids grow up, I'll keep in touch with both of you. I'll work out what's worked well and what hasn't worked that well in this plan, and try and adapt.
Shareholders, not directors. That's that's the main one. So you've nearly answered the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, because this is the bit which is the reason we're all here, right? Which is, what is financial freedom to you, and where are you on the journey? And because we think that this question is different for every person. So what is it to you?
Yeah, financial freedom is about having a certain sum of money. It'll be different for different people. For me, I've got a very good financial advisor, Stephen, who sat down with me, and we've come up with a figure which should give me a net of tax amount of money that will give me the lifestyle that I want. And that's what we're working towards with a diversified portfolio of investments, bit of pensions, ISAs, VCTs. He's got me into onshore and offshore bonds, all sorts of other different things to keep it diversified. But then off my own back, I've gone down this property investment angle, having read about it, seeing the returns to be made, and it's interesting. It's something more tangible, isn't it? Rather than bits of paper, it's something you can see, and
it's real. People need homes to live in, don't they? So it's a real solid asset. Yeah.
It is real. So for me, that's what it's all about: building this portfolio of assets, if you like, to live off. But then, as I said before, also then thinking about when I die, making sure there's something there for the boys to have, where they don't have to work too hard for it. It's hopefully more passive income for them. And I think they've enjoyed getting to learn about property investment. I've been giving them some of the books to read on the subject.
Nice.
And which books have they read? Do you want to name? We do like book recommendations on this podcast.
Oh, it's all of the pen stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
Property Magic.
So Property Magic by Simon Kite.
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, that's right, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
There's actually one my financial advisor told me to read about the richest man in Babylon.
Oh yeah.
That one as well, which again is around pay yourself first, isn't it, really? And
I read that years ago, actually.
Even some things, so paying rent is not paying yourself. You get a loan, get a mortgage, and then you're borrowing from other people.
Yeah.
That was a good one. And I think it's told in a way of parables, isn't it? So it's quite an easy read.
Yeah,
it's easy to follow, isn't it?
Yeah, good stuff. So so the next one then is a bit of a self-loaded question, obviously, because you're also a client of our company, which is what strategies you're actually using. But you've mentioned a few others which I'm keen to learn about as well. But because I don't do all of the things you've already mentioned. So what strategies are you using to achieve your financial freedom goals?
The non-property stuff is all driven by my financial advisor. It's making sure you use all of the allowances available to you and have a diversified spread, and find a good financial advisor.
And when did you start that, if you don't mind me asking?
Quite late, to be honest, because as I mentioned, getting divorced before, which set me back financially. So I was in my early to mid 40s probably when I thought I really need to knuckle down now. So I'm getting of an age where I'm running out of years to save for retirement.
I think when you're busy and you're successful, because you've obviously been successful, you feel a bit invulnerable to those things up until certain age profiles anyway. I think if you're not successful or you've not had an easier start, then maybe you think about it a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
But if you're just running around, just everything seems to be going in the right direction career wise. I think it's hard. It's harder to take a step back and go, actually, I need to start planning for the future.
Yeah. I was income rich but asset poor, and I thought this has got to change because this isn't going to help me when I retire.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it was around, okay, and this is the richest man in Babylon philosophy. You put the first thing you do when you get paid is that's going aside to be invested. What I've got left over, I will spend. But I think I had a habit before then of just enjoying myself. And first thing you do, you get the end of year profit share or bonus would be where am I going on holiday this year? And
I assume you were still employed at that point, rather than becoming a partner. Or
I was a partner in 2005, so it was. I think it's after I was a partner, I started thinking I need to get serious about this. Yeah.
It's a good bit of advice, actually, because that earning, it can be, say, 10 or 20% of your income. Like you said, you put it straight into, invest into some sort of asset. You don't even think about it.
I never did it.
I think the book says 10% even,
Yeah.
And if the earlier you start, they'll always say the earlier you start, the easier it is to build a good amount of money. And the later you leave it takes...
Yeah, because you get the compound, you get the compound nature over time. So obviously the earlier you start, you get the compound interest over time.
There's a big difference as well when you're employed to self-employed as well, because when you're employed, you get the paycheck and all the taxes are already taken out. And then when you're self-employed, you do your personal tax at the end of the year. And then your actual accountants tell you not to take more than this certain amount.
When you're employed, it's more stable as well, isn't
Yeah.
it? Self-employed
is
volatile when you get the cash and how much it is year on year.
But it's also like you don't want to take more. They actually say don't take more than that. Put it somewhere else. Accountants actually saying to you, don't do that because it's tax efficient. So then you start thinking practically. Well, what do I do with the rest of the money in the business? Or that kind of thing. It's like, what do I do with it? How do I put that money somewhere else that is then more tax efficient? That actually has a big effect, I find. Yeah. Whether you're self-employed, business owner, or whatever, because you're trying to limit that additional tax basis. Whereas where you PAYE, you just you've no choice. It's taken at source, right? So no choice. You're not making decisions upon that other than maybe upping your pension contributions.
Buy assets. That's the answer to that question, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So we're still on strategies. So you get a good IFA. Right. Not necessarily one of the big ones. Maybe more, personal.
This is an independent business.
Yeah. But then we're going to talk about property. So tell me about your property journey. Good, bad, and somewhere in between.
The good, bad, and the ugly of my property journey, I guess, yeah. We'll
start with the ugly and we'll go up from there.
Bad to good.
The first thing I did, which I think is very common with people in their first venture into property, is to go for the old overseas holiday home.
Right, okay. Timeshare or fully bought?
It was an apartment on a golf resort in Spain, bought at the peak of the market in 2005.
All right, okay.
At a time when I thought this is going to be, it was off plan.
Classic.
This is going to be easy to rent out. We weren't quite guaranteeing the rental income, but obviously all of the modelling they showed of the yields you'd get on it.
You had a good sales.
It was a Jack Nicklaus designed golf course. I mean, it looked brilliant, but at that time they were pouring so much concrete in the south of Spain that the supply exceeded the demand because it was soon followed by a recession and prices dropped 25% plus or something like that within a year or two of me buying it. And it's been really difficult to let out because it was again oversupply and the resort never really got full and busy. So people would go there and think, oh, this is a bit quiet. I'm not coming back here next year for my holidays. So I sat on it for a long time, just thinking, well, the price will rebound and it'll improve, and it never did really. So a few years ago, I just cut my losses and thought, this is costing me thousands of pounds every year. Yeah, that's an expensive holiday. I felt obliged to go there every year because I thought this asset is sat there in Spain. Where are we going this summer? We have to go to Spain. I love other countries. I don't not love Spain, by the way, but I think Spain's great. But you do find yourself obliged, to be fair. obliged to go there. So, so I cut my losses. Yeah. And then the next thing that I did in property investment over here in the UK was a house in Failsworth, and it was right next door to where my younger son was living.
Right, okay,
Oh, Dad, there's a for sale sign next door. This is a great area. Well, that sounds good.
Yeah, and, nice and convenient. Yeah.
So, and it fails with those that are listening from elsewhere is just inside the ring road of the M60.
Yeah,
in effect.
It's not far out of the city centre, is it? It's good convenient location.
It's good commuter area and it's affordable and it's a nice historic area.
We do target it for our property sourcing and developments. Yeah.
So location box ticked. Yeah, that was fine. Got that bit right. But trying to do it on my own when you're busy, I was trying to squeeze things into weekends.
And when you say on your own, what do you mean? What were you doing on your own specifically?
Okay, it needed a lot of work doing to it. So it's finding the
refurbishment.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Upgrading it. Being naive at the beginning of not doing a proper survey, there were all sorts of damp issues. So what I thought was going to be the total cost after refurb ended up being a lot higher because I hadn't done the proper research beforehand. Hadn't got a decent builder in before I purchased it. So have a look around, see what you think. I think we did have a chat at the time, Tim, about whether I should turn it into an HMO. And I said, oh, no, I'm not into HMOs now. It's going to be a single let. That's fine.
Yeah.
And we'll...
was that my advice at the time? Well, I can't remember.
No, I ignored your advice.
I gave the advice to
you said, we can make this into a 5-bed HMO. You get a great yield on it. I said, no, I'm going to stick with single let. Because it's what I knew and understood at the time, I suppose. HMOs were a bit too new for me, and I thought for my first venture, I'll do something simple that I understand.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but so many people do the same thing.
And that is very normal. It's not abnormal.
Same with me. I did the same.
So everything went over budget. It took a lot longer because I didn't have enough time to go and chase people and be on site and manage things.
Monitor.
That's a big thing.
I didn't have the black book of tradespeople to contact that you guys do. So I've probably been taken for a ride on some of the quotes I got, but I didn't know whether it's a fair price or not. I probably did some work that I didn't need to do, making the backyard, repaving that and new fences. And I think
sounds lovely.
Yeah. Oh, it is a nice house. And in fact, it's the same tenant there now. She's in her third year at the moment. I've had only one tenant. I've seen photos, and she's really looked after it. She's made it a real home for us.
Yeah.
Over time, though,
it'd be, if it's a long term tenants, it might be really passive investment. So it might, in the long run.
Is this the one I rang the agent on?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
That's right. Yeah.
I did tell you this.
I think I've heard this story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So,
but this is again because being naive and not being experienced like you guys, I probably overpaid for it anyway. But
right.
I went in for an offer. It got rejected. I pulled out for 6 months, and I thought, actually, you know what? Let's give it another go. Got the price down a little bit, but that was rejected. No, sorry. The next price was rejected, but then you kindly said, no, I got a good little trick here. You probably better to tell the story around what you did to.
It wasn't complex.
No.
It wasn't a complex trick. I just rang the agent and offered them less than you were.
And mate's not going to come in. No, that's a really good price. You should take that, I think.
Yeah. So basically, it was a fair price. Yeah. They've been on the market for ages. I couldn't contemplate.
But sometimes the agent just needs that info to go back to the vendor and say, we've had this 2 bits of feedback, these 2 offers.
I rang them and said, look, I've seen this property that you advertised. I see it's been on the market a while. Just from the photos, I can see these X, Y, and Z problems. It's going to probably cost about this much to do up. I just picked a number out of the air, I think, at the time, based on the photos. I want to come and view it, but I need to know what the realistic price is, because if it's anything less than, and I just chose, like, I think $5,000 less than you'd offered or something like that. If it's anything more than that, I won't bother coming to view it. And he said, oh, well, we've already got offers higher than that. I was like, you've got offers higher than that? Oh, man, I'd be snapping their arm off. Next day, I think you called me and said, oh, they've accepted my offer.
They had. But I don't know whether they were motivated so or not. I've learned more since then around making sure. I was a bit too caught up in the romance of this is right next door to where my younger son
lives, of course,
rather than doing a wider trawl of what's
you just got to think about it like an investment, don't you? Because you had that slight emotional element to it, which
good stuff. So and then we've done a job together. We've done project 1 and we're now on project 2.
So we want to hear about the good now, because you said there was the bad, the middle, the good.
The good, the bad, the ugly. You're right. Yeah. So the ugly was the Spanish property. It wasn't bad, as you say. It will come good in the end.
Yeah.
I don't make much return on it, but at least it's
be a good long term
and a decent tenant. Touch wood. So so the good experience was then realizing, look, I don't have the time, I don't have the experience and the skills for this. I'm just going to go to completely the opposite extreme and outsource everything to you guys. So I'd met Tim at one of these PIN events. I knew you from a previous role, and we kept in contact. So I thought, okay, I know these guys, and I took some references as well. So then that kind of gave me a bit of extra reassurance. So I thought, let's go and try this approach, and that was everything from sourcing the property, handling all of the quotes and doing the redevelopment and the project management of that, through to letting it out. The deal appraisal that you did at the beginning, which I think you said we want to be conservative about it, proved to be exactly what you said it was going to be. It was, you'd been really accurate on your costs. You built in the contingencies. There were a few things that came up with the roof and party wall and a few things along the journey.
We had some contingency budget, didn't we?
Exactly.
I think it was still within budget, wasn't it? With
absolutely within a tiny amount. Yeah. Where I won in the end was, I think you've been conservative on the rent, so it was converted into a 6-bed HMO. This is in Warrington, west of Manchester, a good, nice sized town between Manchester and Liverpool.
Good commercial town as well. A lot of business there because of the
lots of employment, isn't there? We find it in Warrington.
Ticked all the boxes again for location, but you've done a really good job sourcing a good value at the buy end of things. We've been able to get between 645 and 695 for each room, so the average is 675. I was able to get quite a bit of the cash out. So the the yield I'm getting is probably around 30%. It depends how much I'm going to need to reserve.
You mean about return on investment?
Return on investment.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Funds
my funds left
Yeah.
in. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
Which you need to keep a bit back because there will be,
And that's the bit
by
where
time.
even allowing for that is still going to be.
I think on the
way
conservative
better.
end, when there's a bit more maintenance and voids and stuff, it's probably at the 20-ish percent, 20 plus, I'd say. I think
Yeah,
on
but that's all right, because then when we started the project, we said let's aim for something that's 15 or above. That's a target. So you've exceeded the target.
Yeah. Right, podcast over. Let's go.
Yep. Anyone wants to sign up, please get in touch.
The trouble is, you set yourself such high standards. I said, great, let's do another one. And you think, crikey, how are we going to match that next time round as well? But
But we do have another one going.
we do have
to
one. We consistently do it as well. I think that's the key thing. And the next one was interesting as well because it was an auction property. The first one was private sale, and that was good fun. I have to say because I was delegated buyer on the day.
That's right. I was at a conference.
You've got.
Also, you even outsource the online bidding in your account. Is that?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So we have an authorization process to bid on behalf of.
Yeah.
And I always enjoy that part. I have to say, it's good fun auctions. Good fun.
We agreed on a max bid of 195, and you managed to get it for 170.
Yeah, I couldn't believe how low that went for us.
Yeah,
we stacked the appraisal. So
yeah.
Really good
So I mean, I'd even asked the auctioneer beforehand because I know the auctioneer quite well because we've obviously bought a lot of property from them.
We have, yeah.
And she was saying like there's been 8 or 9 legal packs, and people there was quite a few people watching it and stuff like that, but just nobody bid. It was nearly because it was one of these timed ones as well. Like
everyone had technical problems at the time.
Yeah.
It worked in your favour.
Yeah. So no, it's. I mean, I don't.
So basically, property is easy.
Well, well, you've had the ugly and the bad.
If you deal with the right people.
Yeah. Well,
you've had all extremes, so you can compare.
I've been lucky. I recognise with the last one and touch with this one, we're hoping to complete next week on it.
Yeah.
This is in Bury, which is North Manchester. Again, great connections into Manchester. A lot going for it.
You got to say nice things about Bury.
What?
Yeah.
We're trying to buy one across the road, actually.
Yeah, it's on the road, right? So we're going to be HMO neighbours
for our portfolio.
Competing for tenants. There we go. But yeah, I mean, it is. I think one of the things is how many queries have you had since? I just wanted to ask this: how many times have you been approached about tenant problems?
I haven't had any tenant problems. I'd be interested to know actually how many tenant problems there have been, or maybe I want to know.
Quite a few. Maybe. I mean, you hear more than me, but I've heard quite a few.
Bits that
come up, more like bits and pieces that come up.
Yeah, a few bits like standard bits, really, like Wi-Fi connected, like coverage, and then we've had to go and get another system and put that in. And
yeah, the general tenants have been good, haven't they?
Yeah,
but,
there's one person.
There's bits and pieces that come
rude.
up. Yeah,
but it could also be a language thing because he's not, native.
And the other question is how much time involvement did you have during the refurb process? Would you say per week?
Zeros with whatever I wanted. It was that's the other thing to mention perhaps is the updates that I was receiving throughout the process are really, really helpful. I could see progress and where we were ahead of budget for quite a long time in terms of tracking ahead of time for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I think holidays came up and we fell a bit behind, but we ended up catching back up again because you were managing the team and keeping things on to where we need to have this fully tenanted during the summer, because that's when people finish education and start looking for accommodation, that sort of thing.
Yeah, it did come live at a good time, didn't it?
Yeah.
From a lettings perspective.
And the other thing that I suppose has been helpful with your black book of useful contacts is that Adam, who looks after utilities, now means that I don't have to deal with any of those meter readings or anything else like that, because obviously the tenants are getting an all-inclusive deal for rent and bills, but which means that as a landlord, I'm responsible for all those bills.
I think he's organised with smart meter in the end. Is that right? I think that's now in.
Having smart meters in there makes a big difference.
Because there was a topping up issue during the process project.
Yeah.
So I took over your British Gas for a while.
It was a top-up card, and we had to get that changed over. So that was
those things do come up. But no, I mean generally, we had an issue this week where we've had your heating management system installed, and there's a learning on this actually. We'll go through afterwards. But basically, when they install it, it's left on auto,
right?
But the auto is for both the heating and the hot water,
right?
And the hot water is in a tank, and it interrupts the tank. so all the hot water went off.
Right.
So we need to just double check on that with the installer that he's leaving it on manual for the hot water.
Yeah.
And it's just little things like that, though.
Yeah.
We've got the same guy doing every job, so we could have that problem
Well, no, that's the thing. We've had that problem three in a row.
Right, so we need to change
which
that.
is we should have learned earlier, really.
We should have. Yeah. It's the first I've heard about it.
Yeah, there you go. It's passed on now. There you go. But no, good. So hopefully, I mean, you say HMOs aren't passive, and hopefully that's as quiet as it can be. Probably, I would have thought, and everything's systemized and outsourced. So that's good. So and then we've got another one, like we said, complete next week.
And because I suppose the other thing to say about why I saw that as a great success, we had the first tenant within 24 hours of it being advertised, and within a month, they'd all basically gone through.
There was lots of demand, wasn't it?
We have super lettings team. I have to say, the girls are
really
brilliant. They really are top quality.
Yeah.
We've got a new property manager. She's been great. She's just finding her feet a little bit. So there's a few bits there, but generally speaking, I'm very proud of the team.
Yeah, really good team.
Yeah,
really
they
good
take
team.
it very personally, which they kind of understand, because we hold every quarter we hold a general meeting, and we tell them about the things that we're doing and the things that the clients are, because if you're doing one of these commercially valued projects, you have personal guarantees, and the trust on the property is there, and you're managing this not just this property,
and every aspect is really
risks,
important, isn't it, along the whole way? Everything has some sort of impact on something else. The time's important, the rents you get are important, the quality of the work's important, all those sort of things,
maintenance, responsiveness, that kind of stuff, to keep the tenants on board and stuff like that. That's all, because if you look after them, they'll look after the property. That's generally the thing. And I just don't understand sometimes why somebody would invest 300,000+ pounds in a property and then go with a high street agent. And it boggles my mind. It really does, because that's when the problems are. We've just bought one, in fact, in the heart of Salford, which is a really key area. We've just bought one, haven't we?
Yeah.
And it's 100 grand less than it should be. We bought it for, because of the tenant problem.
Because of the bad tenants, and the rates they were paying, even with those bad tenants, were substantially below the market rate for just that quality product.
Yeah.
So we're actually doing a fairly small refurb, considering what we do with other projects.
We're going to spend only a 30k, 40k,
40 max.
40k refurb, and that property's going to be worth 400, and we bought it for 250. It's like, come on, all you need to do is look after your property. No point in spending 300 grand and then not looking.
But that's the difference, because we do talk about it all the time, between good management and average management, and it really can cause a big risk if it's not managed effectively, or the wrong type of managing.
It's the thing that's the most overlooked part.
Yeah.
Because there's companies out there that do the first bit but don't do the management.
Yeah.
Right. So they'll do the find it and they build it, but they won't give you any they don't have any rental comparisons. They don't know what the tenant type in the area is like. But that property looks good, and it should for a HMO, and I can do it for this amount, and people sign up to it.
But actually, it's a fair point, because another tip, if you are looking for a portfolio building business similar to what we do, by having all of the teams in there from start to finish, that company's accountable for every process.
Yeah.
Because even in our internal team, we might have some projects which have a few more maintenance problems than others, and we go, all right, that was that contractor. Yeah. So we need to really either talk to them about it, stop that from happening, or maybe we just have to use other contractors. So we're accountable all the way through.
There's one company, and we won't name names because it's unfair, in Greater Manchester, who we get regular calls from landlords and investors and property owners from.
Yeah,
and they've done the works, and now they can't find tenants.
Right, okay.
Because it's in the wrong area.
Yeah. They've sourced it and done the project management, not the lettings.
Okay.
So like you said, the area probably isn't right for the demand and the lettings.
Well, there might be a demand, but they've done it like a high value refurb or whatever.
Yeah, they've done a top end in a lower rate area. Isn't there. So they bought the property at a really low price, because it's like a deprived area almost, isn't it? That we've had referred.
Yeah, that's not a good deal. If you buy a property in a deprived area at a deprived price,
spend a lot on it.
That's not a good deal. It's getting a good deal in the right area, right?
Exactly.
Cool. All right. That's enough smoke. Thanks very much for that, Simon. We'll pay you later. We'll pay you later.
Great. We're very happy to
envelope put me in your bag as you leave. So anything else apart from property in your FA, or is that seems like a really well balanced thing now?
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, I've started looking a bit more in art, because again, that's something else you can see, touch and enjoy whilst you've got it as an investment. Like stocks and shares.
So watches, art and whiskey are the three, aren't they? That if you wanted to invest in.
What about wine?
Wine as well, yeah.
Whiskey gets drunk. Let's not stay there for very long.
Yeah. Good stuff. Yeah, I don't think I'd ever invest in art. I'm not that kind of. Well, let's never say never, but I don't think I'd ever do that. I'm not sure. But
I could. I think.
I think you probably could.
Yeah, they're not Picasso's on the wall, but there's something which
not a banana with a bit of sellotape. Whatever that was recently. Did you see that thing? The guy ate it.
Yeah.
Bought it for $6 million at the banana.
We're thinking of having that in our meeting rooms at work. We'll have a banana in one room, then we'll have the orange room, and then we'll have another one with an apple taped on it. So it's just...
Good talking point. Anyway, right. So what we want to talk about now is what does a typical day look like for you? Because everyone's a little bit different in how they structure. So you're obviously extremely successful in your career. How do you balance that in your day to day?
Every day is different, which is one of the good things about the job, I suppose. I never know what I'm going to be faced with when I get to work. I deal with a huge variety of clients. I'm a partner in a firm with 120 odd staff in our Manchester office. There's always people issues.
Now, some of your clients are excited as well, aren't they?
Some of our clients are very exciting. Yeah, I've got
sports and
Sales Sharks are a client. They're
Formula,
a great client. Yeah. As a firm, we for
I want to talk to you about this after the interview.
All of the top 20 male and female tennis players, bar one.
Really,
loads of footballers. Yeah, but some great manufacturing businesses, services businesses. It's a great variety of clients. So I like that. And the strategy stuff I like as well. I'm on the firm's leadership board now, and as I've got more experienced and got involved in that's interesting stuff. And again, there's so many ideas you have when you're thinking at that level.
That board sounds like busy people that could really do with an outsourced portfolio building company.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Spread the word. Yeah.
So how many referrals can you make?
So there's definitely a lot to do. So to your question around how do I try and get some balance around that? Having the dogs really helps. It's the first thing I do. I'm up at 6 a.m. The first thing I do is get out, get some fresh air and have a walk.
Same.
And that's really important. The fact that we do more agile working these days is helpful, because when I'm working from home, that's probably when I go to the gym for a swim or do a workout. If not, I'm probably straight on the tram getting into work, and then you go into a long day and you get back. Yeah. Because the days can be quite intensive. I must admit, our evenings are fairly mundane, watching trash TV, which is a great way to wind down. So you go to bed with nothing in your brain apart from what's happened on I'm a Celebrity or MasterChef.
I really agree with that, because if I watch something interesting at night and I've learned something or whatever, I just lie in bed thinking about it. I can't get to sleep. So I agree. It's an hour wind down of crap that sometimes helps you get a good sleep.
I think my wife's got a tactic, which is when she's had enough of me, she puts a certain type of program on.
Right.
And whether I'm
leave the room,
or whether I'm on the couch or lying on the bed, I'm asleep within 10-15 minutes. Yeah.
Well, I actually I do like to read as well. It's kind of different form of rather than being on your phone all day long and reading even things on a Kindle. It's the old-fashioned book, turning the pages. There's the Mick Herron Slough House series, which is now on TV as well, with Gary Oldman. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a great TV series. The books are fantastic as well. There's quite a few books that I've read to my wife. You talk about your wife putting something on to send you to sleep. Well, I'd send my wife to sleep with my boring accounting voice and
with your reading.
Kelly Manuals, but reading Richard Osman books or something like that.
Yeah. So you read the story to her?
I read to her.
I love that.
It just started on a holiday where I said, let me just read the first chapter of this book to you. She said, carry on.
I've offered, honestly, to read my wife a story about 100 times, and she's turned me down every single time. Or tell her one, because I'm quite imaginative, so I can just roll them up.
But you will get to a bit where I get really excited. Wow, and you turn around and she's gone to sleep.
Close the book.
Oh, great. Okay, I'll have to redo that chapter again tomorrow.
Yeah. No, that is lovely. That is nice. So up with the dogs, ideally the gym if you're working from home. Otherwise it's the commute, right? The commuter belt is horrible, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah.
There's no winners. You're centre of town as well, right?
I've given up driving into Manchester now. I'm on the tram.
You said tram.
I think that driving is a nightmare these days.
Yeah.
But that gives you a chance. I read on the tram as well.
Yeah. Some good podcasts you could listen to, actually, if you ever fancied it.
Well, now at least one episode of that.
Yeah. There you go.
Stop the podcast now. This episode is sponsored by Property Filter. Property Filter is the #1 property tool for today's property professional.
It brings in all the data points and sources from all the property portals and auction sites into one convenient place. Then you have the option to overlay all the clever strategies found in the property filter blueprint to find motivated sellers faster. Now, we use it on a daily basis. It saves us over 80% of our time when looking for properties. And if that sounds like something that you want in your lives, please go to register.property-filter.co.uk/PPB, which is the discount code for this podcast. You will get 2 weeks free and a discount on your first month. That's it from me. Back to the podcast.
All right, lovely. So success and failures. Now, you've been in business a while. You're going to have had both. Most people have. So in your journey today, and obviously in property, we've talked about the ugly property. What are you most proud of so far? And then what do you think is your biggest failure/learning?
What I'm most proud of so far, I suppose from a work point of view, would be I fell into accountancy. It's one of those things I didn't know what I wanted to do when I finished school. So I thought I'd just do a business degree. I didn't know what I wanted to do. When I finished the business degree, I thought I'd do some chartered accounting exams. That'll be 3 year of my life spent on getting a good qualification that would have multiple uses potentially. It's only once I got to the end of that 3 year training contract, I thought, actually, it's not as bad as I thought, actually. It's not all about numbers. It's around people and communication and building relationships and other more interesting stuff. So having fallen into it as a career, I've now got to a point where, as I said, I'm on the leadership board of a national firm of accountants with 1,200 people and have a really enjoyable and fulfilling role. I suppose on that journey, I've had various points where things have plateaued a bit and I thought, where am I going? And I need to reflect and then maybe step off this platform and go into a different trajectory within the profession. So I think it's, I suppose a general message to my kids and other people would always be to always take time to reflect on where you are, where you want to be, and don't be afraid to make a change rather than stick to doing the same thing. If it's not working, then
there's a lot of emotional intelligence to be able to do that, and bravery though. Even if your firm is agile and you can do that and you can move internally, there's a lot, isn't there? There's risk involved, and there's a comfort blanket of the salary and the going through the motion.
So then question on that then, what do you actually do to reflect? Do you take yourself out somewhere and sit down and journal? We talk about that, or what's your sort of way of reflecting and coming up with those thoughts and ideas?
Yeah, talking to people around you. If you've got loved ones around you, that clearly helps. About what do you enjoy about what you do? What do you not enjoy about what you do? And try and use that to reflect on where the next best home for you might be. But ultimately, it's your decision, and you've got to take time away on your own, in a safe space or just a place without any distractions.
Yes.
One thing I was taught from an early age, I guess, was always to push myself outside my comfort zone. So when I was having those reflections, I always felt empowered or encouraged to take that leap and not be afraid to take that leap. Because what's the worst that can happen? You just go back to where you were before. If things don't work out, it's not the end of the world.
Take a bit of a risk. And
tomorrow's another day, isn't it?
Yeah, I really resonate with that actually, because if I think of two key moments I've stepped out of my comfort zone. It's leaving the country that I was living in and the job I had, and like you, my thought was, right, worst case, go back home, just go back to the same job. That's absolute worst case.
Yeah.
And then similarly, when I left my job here, when I got the property income. Again, worst case, that doesn't work out. Just go back to that job or a similar job. And it's just like that, at the end of the day, isn't
You'd
it?
always have that safety net somewhere and hopefully people around you to help you and give you a bit of time to get back to where you want to be.
Yeah.
I think that's really important,
When you took that step back to only be with the family and earn money from the income, and when we set up this crazy, instead entrepreneurial.
Yeah, this business that keeps us busy.
Right?
Yeah, we do enjoy it, don't we? It does keep us
full
busy.
of admiration for people who set up their own businesses. I mean, I talk about me being brave and switching from company A to company B to make sure I can keep progressing, but that's a lot safer space than people who leave full-time employment and set up their own business with no clients on day one, and they've got an idea, they've got a strategy, but they don't know whether it's going to work or not. You need to
Well, you need to prove it to yourself, don't you?
Yeah.
You need to prove it yourself, then you need to prove it to your clients. And
it's funny because we're just on our third strategy day, aren't we?
Yes.
Very different.
Yeah.
Very different to year one.
Yeah, I bet.
Year one was, please somebody work with us. Now it's like, we don't want any more clients.
Well, we can talk about it, can't we? Because this year our strategy was double down, so we decided just to double everything, and that means double projects, clients, everything like that.
Right.
So next year we've decided keep at the same level,
Don't do any more.
Just do it better or as good as we can.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah. So it's a good place. Have we covered biggest challenge? I think you've covered that off there, really.
Yeah, I mean, biggest challenge is it can take a toll on people around you, I suppose. I mentioned that from a kind of personal point of view earlier on. I think you do need to be mindful of people around you, the ones that you love, and keeping those relationships.
You miss a lot of stuff as well, right?
You do, yeah.
I've got a video when I was at a nativity with Megan's, and I think that was one of them too I saw.
Yeah.
While she was in primary school. Those type of things, the sports days and stuff that you'd miss, and the games that you'd miss, and
definitely
that kind of thing. And is it worth it in the long run? But now you've got that relationship.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you guys saying that, actually, because that's one of my real things that I try and do. It's like I've got a privilege where I can make sure I am there for the kids. So those simple things, like you said, the sports days or whatever, it's just when they are there, just go to them.
Yeah.
Even if you are really busy.
People respect you for it. No one's going to say, what on earth are you doing spending time with your family when you should be doing this for me? I think people these days are very respectful of that, and they should be.
Yeah.
It's a good quality to have.
Yeah. I would insist.
I think Phil, were you respectful of the go with the family to Tenerife this week?
Yeah, he bloody booked a holiday when I was already on holiday, and then I couldn't have my holiday. I was like, oh, great. Okay, well, there you go. Never mind.
Yeah.
It's what it is.
Sorry about that.
That's all right. Don't worry.
I think you did have your birthday off, didn't you?
No, I'll tell you about that later. But no,
right.
Yeah, there was lots of things that happened that day. I had 2 hours off, but thanks for bringing it up. It's not bitter at all, Tim. There you go. But no, it was good. It was good anyway. It's fun though. I was chatting to a previous guest before about it, and it doesn't feel like work sometimes,
No.
I
I definitely don't feel the way about waking up to do work in the business than I did in working for an employer.
Yeah, there's some things that I don't really want to have to do and that kind of stuff, but we're finding ways and means to give that to somebody else.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you grow as a business, it becomes more affordable to do that as well, right? So, so just doing the things that I love to do, really focusing down on that. And
naturally, team members come in that are just way better at it than you are anyway. So
more empathetic to tenants, more empathetic to how lettings processes, and willing to do the extra mile. I would dread this. They love that, and I'm like, how do you love that? I dread it, and I don't understand. But there you go.
But everyone's different, aren't they? What?
Yeah.
Perhaps the other, maybe the other challenge that a lot of people face, but I'll certainly hold my hands up to this, will be the imposter syndrome that you have. People look at me and say, well, you've done really well, you're successful, but there's plenty of days where I'm sat there thinking, how on earth did I get into this position? Am I really good enough to be doing what I'm doing? But that's quite common, isn't it? We had
very common, and we get that all the time on this podcast.
I think you've got to be some kind of sociopath if you don't have some of that. When you get to the higher echelons of a business and you're running a business and things like that, I don't think anybody doesn't have some level of that. Especially as if you sat there and everything's going. Do you know what? Going well.
Yeah,
that's actually worse. Yeah. Because when your duties are lower or lesser and you're not as busy, that's when those
get a bit more anxious about
anxiety kicks in, I find. Suspicious of when things go well. Be suspicious is the sort of mantra. But I totally resonate with that.
We had somebody at a leadership conference recently where a guest speaker was saying it is common if you have those days where you are having an imposter syndrome moment. At the end of the day, write down 3 things that you did that day that went well or made a difference to somebody, and just reinforce the positive things you've done rather than have doubts about the things that you haven't done or that didn't go quite as well. Positive reinforcement you can do is quite a good trick, we were told.
But that worry is ingrained in us, isn't it? Because if you go back to caveman time or whatever, it was about survival, and you're designed to worry about like what do I do to survive, whereas that's just come forward with us in modern
risk
society.
management, self-protection.
And I think burnout as well. I think if you're tired and you sometimes it catches you off guard as well, if you because you're busy, and then you've not taken the breaks that you promised yourself. I'm bad for that, to be fair.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you hit a wall and you get you it's not that your routine changes or you're going to bed any later, but you just lethargy is higher. And I think that's sometimes a lot when that starts to affect anxiety and imposter syndrome and stuff like that as well.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes it's either things are going too well or you're not taking enough breaks.
Yeah.
And to take some time away. Yeah. What I find is, as a business owner, is just go back and I just look at the courses that we've hit.
Oh yeah, it's good to reflect.
Yeah, just to reflect and say we've hit all these courses, we've got all these people. This was the strategy. These are the targets we set at the start of the year, and this is what this is where we are.
We've done that in our quarterly meetings. We went back to like you said, the last 2 strategy days, and it's amazing to think that what the last 2 years
this
have done.
This one's an insane one, isn't it? Where we've said we were going to have 200.
Oh yeah, this is freakishly accurate.
Absolutely, it's 200 property income streams by Christmas.
The objective was called 200 not out. By the end of the calendar year of 2024, we are going to be exactly 200.
Wow.
That's mental.
It's freakish how accurate it was.
And the projects.
Yeah.
We need 2. I think we need 2.
We're 2 off now, aren't we?
Yeah. So but
fantastic.
That's all right, isn't it?
That is just that is just putting a plan in place and then implementing. That's all it is.
Yeah. But even then,
sounds
the imposter syndrome creeps in. Yeah. Even then, even when you do those things. And I think sometimes the celebration and showing the team all celebrating, that helps massively, I find, when the team is celebrating their wins. Yeah. We do a Friday wins on that.
We do. Yeah. Friday weekly wins is for everyone to reflect in the team, isn't it? So they can just talk about the things that worked well that week or gone well. Yeah.
Good. So question 6. So what is the best piece of advice you've been given?
The best piece of advice was, I'll give 2 if I can.
Yeah,
absolutely.
One came through some coaching that I received about myself, some 360-degree coaching. I'm a very impulsive action kind of person, get things done. Often the first thing that comes to mind is not the best idea.
Yeah.
I was told by my coach, so I often have these fantastic ideas, at least fantastic to me, go racing off and then look over my shoulder and everyone else in the office is still kind of discussing it and thinking about it. And I'm saying, well, come on, let's get on with it.
Yeah.
So that was really important advice around pausing, reflecting, taking time on decisions and not being impulsive and rushing to the first decisions. The Chimp Paradox is a great book.
Yes.
About that.
And I need to read that, don't I?
I've got a copy.
Everyone should read that.
Yeah, I need to buy
I thought that is so me. That is my chimp.
And have you heard of the term fast is slow and slow is fast? Which is basically what you're saying is that if you rush into something, it's gonna take longer anyway because you made the wrong decision, something bad's happened or whatever, and you got to redo it, etc.
I guess
that's a really good term.
Tortoise and the hare analogy again.
Same sort of thing at the end of the day.
The SEAL team motto, something like that, isn't it?
Is that?
All the SEAL teams, like slow is fast and fast is. I can't remember exactly, but
and my wife Rebecca is great because she's the exact opposite for me. So sometimes she needs me to kind of push things along a bit to make things happen, but I equally need her
to slow you down
on decision making.
Exactly.
Otherwise,
that's a great partnership.
Yeah, that's like my wife is exactly the same.
Yeah,
she will stay in bed all day if allowed. Like. If allowed, I shouldn't say that. It's not for me to tell her not to, but something like that. Get up and go. She says, "My get up and go. Get up and went." So she just slows me down massively. It is a good balance. Yeah, it's a good balance. Lucky to have that.
Yeah,
because very very rare skill set to be fair.
Yeah,
for somebody to say no, let's just slow down.
Slow down and think about
don't worry about anything. And
that's good.
Yeah, that is good.
So that's the first bit of advice which I received.
And just for anybody listening who hasn't done 360 feedback, that's where you're getting feedback from all your peers.
It was anonymous feedback from
up, down, sideways,
to peer level and more junior.
Identified.
So was the feedback that you were taking action too quick and not thinking about it enough?
The feedback went through a coach who summarised a few themes that were coming out of those.
Right. Yeah.
And then through various coaching sessions said, well, these are the kind of tools and tips.
Maybe we need to do that with our team and get a bit of 360 feedback.
Anonymous feedback, I think, is the only way to get accurate feedback. We have these appraisal forms at work.
Yeah.
It's too hard.
I call them warm bath.
Oh, right. So you got the feedback from
the written feedback
people,
is always
didn't have a name to it.
Because when it's anonymous, people have that psychological safety, I suppose, of being able to really speak their mind.
Yeah.
You'd want them to anyway, but I think inevitably it's easier when people
don't have
can do it to an independent third party who's going to consolidate it, maybe pick out where there might be an isolated bit of feedback that maybe isn't representative, and so well, that's probably somebody maybe a bit unfair, or it's a one-off. We'll give you the benefit of the doubt on that one. But there's a few people who are saying the same things here.
Yeah,
there's a theme.
Yeah.
Let's think about how we can coach on developing those areas.
Yeah, I think
brilliant. One of the best things ever happened.
Move forwards in management development, that'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. At the moment, I think we're at the
yeah.
wrong stage of the life cycle.
Yeah, it's going to be the right time for it, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the second one.
Yeah, the second one is about not judging other people and always trying to see the best in other people, because I think it's one of the things my mum might have told me at some point, but you don't know what's going on in their world. So if somebody's behaving irrationally, or there may be something bad happens that day. From the property side of things, if you've got a difficult tenant, maybe they've got real problems at work and being a bit sympathetic, or they've lost their job, or they're really worried about money. And I think that's an important area, because I work with people, whether they're within my organization or with clients, and sometimes people behave differently to the way that you would hope that they might behave. But it's not because they're deliberately trying to be difficult or they're deliberately underperforming. Maybe if you probe a bit more, you might find out there's a reason behind that.
I've never met anybody that genuinely goes to work and doesn't want to do a good job.
Exactly.
Like, it's hard to find something. Like I've occasionally caught people out where they've done something stupid, like told them going to a client meeting and then just gone home for the afternoon. You know?
But
I've had that, but I've never had generally. I manage recruiters, right? So they're all habitually looking for ways out.
Well, I think
doing the hard job.
Where it does separate, I don't think anyone is actively coming to do a bad job or whatever. But
competence.
Then there's competence, but there's also the people that can reflect on, say, feedback and understand that and improve. And there's some people that just don't accept feedback or don't want to improve, and they sort of just put their back up. And they see it as a.
And someone else, I think, challenged my thinking again. This might have been another conference with an external speaker talking about there's no such thing as underperformance, it's undercoaching. And it switches it around onto you to say, they didn't do a good job. Did you brief them properly? Are you confident that you really have given them the tools, the training, the briefing on that to enable them to do that? And you take that responsibility.
Do you know, we assume everything's our fault, don't we? That's what we've decided as a business, that everything is mine and Tim's fault. And then
it's certainly the case what you're saying with, say, delegation, because sometimes if something's not quite what you wanted, you can literally just go back and say, all right, they did what I asked, but I did not give them the detail that was required for that.
You may think you did, but it's what they hear rather than what you think.
Exactly. Yeah, but the other side of it, and it's probably a longer debate, is like the difference between, trusting and micromanagement as well, isn't it? Because if you do too much micromanagement, they completely rely on you. You have to be there all the time. Yeah. But then if you don't give them enough guidance and trust, you get issues as well.
Yeah, and it's hard, isn't it? Because especially in a corporate world, when you step out of the corporate world and you do like your own personal development and stuff like that, when the management training isn't coming your way anymore, so you got to do because I've done all the 360, the leapers and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So the blind spots and are always the blind spots. You don't know you've got them, which are always great learnings. But when you take it away, when you step out of that and you're doing personal development, that's when you really start to learn about yourself, I think, as well. Which is why we now have that everything's our fault, and then explain to us why how that's gone wrong. You know, and then because it is our fault at the end of the day. It's our system, our process, our company, our responsibility. What is the problem? And then when it gets to a point where it is competence, then it's clear and obvious, isn't it?
Yep.
When it's just a pure competence issue, and then you can actually say, listen, it's our fault because maybe you're in the wrong role. Yeah, and then that's a different way of looking at things. But I fully agree with that. Taking that in is hard. It's hard. Certainly when I was even like a team leader within recruitment, I didn't have that mindset. It was just people. I was good and people weren't as good. That was it.
Yeah. Well, when I was young, I just thought the way I was doing it was fine. But until you get the feedback and you reflect on it, and then you decide that you're going to change or learn from it, that's when you evolve.
You have to be really like self-reflective, I think, to even get to that position. Even to listen to the feedback from the speaker and take that on board and have that as changing advice.
Yeah.
You have to have
It's
that.
not easy.
intelligence.
It's not easy to take, is it? I bet when you're reading that feedback, you're like, "What? No,
It's brutal at the time.
brutal."
Yeah.
Initially, it's brutal,
But it was
and
one
then
of the best things that's ever happened because
Absolutely.
at least then I was able to do something about it.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, good stuff. Right, so that brings your grill into the end. So now's the fun part for you. You get to ask us a question, which is how we tend to end every session. So what have you got for us? What have you prepared?
Well, you're the experts on the property market, the housing market, compared to me at least. So the topic of the day is clearly around having a new government and all the things that they're planning to do, one of which is to build 1.5 million new homes over the lifetime of this Parliament. So as somebody who's investing in property, and at the moment I've experienced fantastic demand for the HMO product, how do you see building 1.5 million homes have an impact on the property market generally and in particular for landlords?
So first thing, have we heard this before from a government company?
Yeah, is this where's this? Has anybody ever said they're going to build 1.5 million homes before?
That's the first thing I think about. So obviously at the moment you're referring to Labour have just come into power.
Yeah.
They're making the promise of 1.5 million homes.
Yeah.
We've heard this before for point number one. So
there's two parts to this. There's the practical part of what they're trying to do, and then there's the impact, isn't there? If they achieve it.
and the time, and the timing involved.
So if we talk about the bit that's important to you first, which should be the impact if they achieve it, and then we'll talk about the practicalities again there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the impact on a landlord, if you like. So immigration. Well, do you know the immigration stats recently from last year and stuff?
Just under 1 million, wasn't it?
Yeah.
year?
Okay. So
Net migration
net
is about
migration.
1 million.
Yeah, rolling on the rolling 12 months for the last measure, basically, whenever that was, September or something, 24. So we're trying to build 1.5 million homes. So let's say 2 people to a home. So that's
The supply and demand
third of
still
that
isn't
required.
improving, is it?
and that's in 1 year. So what we're talking about is 1.5 million homes over 5 years, isn't it? It's a 5-year pledge. So 300,000 a year, and we've got 1 million net migration coming into the country. So I would suggest that's an undersupply if they hit that target, just based on that pure simple maths.
So obviously currently, or if you look back however many years, there's been a lot higher demand than supply, like substantially higher. So with what you're saying there is if we built 1.5 million homes, but the demand is 2 million,
Yeah.
it's actually not drifting apart as much as it has been the last few years, the supply and demand, but there's still supply and demand challenges there because the net migration or the net population increase is still
because we're living to be older and people aren't dying and freeing up their houses for the next generation, are they?
Yeah. Well, so there's other elements, isn't there?
Yeah,
there's other things.
yeah.
So
aging population is another factor that affects those.
So they've changed some other rules as well. Like we do have an aging population, like you said. So we are living longer. So people are staying in their homes. My next door neighbour, I think she's pushing 90. She lives in a big 4-bed detached on her own. Why would you do that? It's a family home. Give it to a family.
Also, don't forget we're on a small island.
Yeah.
I come from a big island, Australia, and but this is a small island. There's
they've impacted landlords heavily as well. So they brought in 5 years ago Section 24, which was a tax thing which hit landlords over a period of 5 years, which meant that if you own property in your own name, you can't offset mortgage costs. So that's reduced the number of landlords that are willing to hold property. So that's brought more property to the market. And they've obviously changing the stamp duties. So there's purchasing of those properties, which is going to put a lot of people off. So stamp duty went to 5% in the most recent budget.
So your point is there's landlords leaving the market, so there's less rental property because of these reasons.
And that rate goes up again in April. So they reduce the threshold again because they've got the threshold of where that 5% is applied is reduced to the what pre-conservative government rates. So there's going to be less people wanting to put their money into property, and they're increasing regulation. So renters reform, regulatory reform, building control. Reform from October last year. That's all impacting
stricter EPC requirements.
Stricter. So it's going to be
lots of challenges.
More professional landlords, higher quality of living, higher quality of standard. Great opportunity for somebody who wants to provide that quality home, quality standard. A bit like your single that you talked about. Great opportunity because those homes are going to pass muster. but they're going to be fewer, less frequent.
Yeah.
So because there's less people willing to do it, there's less people willing to put in, 40, 50K into a £300 a month return.
Also, the affordability is still going to go up for houses because of the supply demand issues. So, obviously Labor want to help first-time buyers of the market and everything like that, which is great. But there's still a certain amount of deposit you've got to have, a certain amount of affordability you've got to have. So HMOs do provide a lot of it is transitional.
Yep.
You're staying in that room to then progress to buy a house or move here or whatever.
Well, there's even a more fundamental thing, which is where are you going to build it?
Yes.
Right. Which is
this is what I was talking about, the land problem. So you've got, what is it, grey belt, brown belt?
Yeah, but where is that?
Yeah.
Where's the employment versus where people want to live?
And the infrastructure.
Yeah, exactly, the infrastructure. So if you're going to build in all the grey belts, so the grey belts are on the edge of town. Well, there are some grey belts in town. Like they're talking about petrol stations and car parks, right? That's what grey belt is.
Yeah,
that's their.
And where's the most contaminated soil in the world? It's in an old
car parks and
old car park or petrol station, isn't it? No, who's going to build on that?
Yeah, like the old Boddington's Brewery that's now a car park. That'd be a nightmare.
It'd be a terrace house that costs you £1 million or whatever once you've remediated the soil.
So there's some fundamental issues with whether or not that affects landlords. In my opinion, how can it? Because of all of those additional factors. If you think about it,
there's loads of challenges, aren't there?
There's loads and loads of challenges. There's more people. There's less landlords. There's more corporate landlords. More, and the need for good quality accommodation will grow. But who's going to take that old, still got the gas fire on the wall, spend 30, 40 grand to renovate, plus stamp duty at 5%, plus who's going to spend that for 300-400 quid return and then get regulated and punished and not be able to get rid of bad tenants and all this kind of stuff when renters focus it. So you're looking at a more professional level landlord that has to adopt that space, which is great for us.
More professional letting agencies as well, because it's getting harder and stricter. So your traditional agents on the high street that
absolutely
a bit blasé with low rates, they're even going to struggle with it with the new, let alone someone that's trying to self-manage a property. So
and then,
more professional market again.
So from a rental property perspective, as we look at it, it's going to be there's going to be less available. So for those that are in the market, it's going to be more demand, just generally speaking. But then how would that 1.5 million homes, if they let's say they hit it, I still think that rental market's going to be a challenge for the government. Yeah. And then there's the fundamental part of the 1.5 million pledge. Why they've done the same pledge as the previous government, I don't know, because the previous government
is it exactly the same?
I think it's 1.5 million.
Yeah,
I think pretty much it's 1.5 million.
It's crazy, isn't it?
They're not going to hit year one, because and then they'll go, oh well, we'll catch up in year 4 or 5. So let's look at the fundamentals, right? So when you're building a house, there's 2 key things that you need. One is materials, and the other is labor. And then the third thing is where, like we talked about, where you're going to build that. So if you take into just the first 2, which is materials costs are really, really high. Obviously post-COVID, really, really high. And they're showing no signs of slippage at the moment, especially with Brexit and, having to import a lot of stuff.
Oh, I mean, inflation has slowed down.
Inflation has slowed down, but the prices haven't gone backwards.
No, they're never going to go backwards, are they? Because once they're at a point that,
So at a fundamental level, if I took let's call it a brownfield rundown terrace house versus a new build property, okay, the rundown terrace house is probably cheaper to renovate than it is to buy and renovate than it is to build a new property. And
in the areas that Labour are talking about, because they want new build, say, social housing stock.
Yeah.
So if you took the areas that would work really well in, say, Greater Manchester, the build cost for that is going to be higher than buying the terrace in that area.
So exactly.
So fundamentally, it just doesn't stack up.
So if you look at Salford, let's look at Salford, right? So Salford, terrace house, Swinton, 190 grand all day. Yeah. That's the 2 large terrace, 3-bed or two large room terrace, 190k. To build that, 240k. Right. So how are you going to do that? Because all that's going to do is push house. If you're building these houses, which are then going to be smaller than this one, so you're going to build it for 190, it's going to be much smaller than this one. You can still buy this one. Yeah. So then there's a fundamental flaw in that process, right? So
unless there's major government
subsidies. Yeah. So then they're going to have to do something like major subsidies, but they don't want to be seen to subsidize private venture in that way. But they're going to have to do something. And then there's the fundamental where. The local planning authorities have come out and said this is impossible.
But
So they're talking about planning reform and pushing things through. I just don't know.
But the positive is,
They must have a plan.
or the opportunity is for the investor. In the small scale development space,
Yeah.
there's going to be lots of opportunity to buy properties because landlords are leaving the market for lots of the reasons you mentioned there. That makes it harder, less professional.
Yeah.
So there's opportunities to buy and develop.
And
And on the planning reform side, I think that is one of the big positives that Labor can bring in is good planning reform.
yeah.
Because they've got a majority in the House and everything like that. So
Yeah,
all the challenges
true.
the Tories had with getting, the planning reform sorted, hopefully Labor can do something. So there's another good opportunity for
That's a good-
small scale developers. And there's not a lot of small scale developers because they've all lots of them exited the market. So there's a big opportunity.
And if you think about the fundamental who's providing that tenanted housing and the age profile of that person, and there's going to be more retiring landlords due to the legislation than there will be people entering into the market because the property prices are still high. So if the disposable income of people just getting onto the housing market is now 34, I believe, which over the years was gone from like 22 to 34.
For average purchase.
For your own home.
Yeah.
for
I
your
saw it was
own
35
home.
the other day, but
Yeah, 34, 35.
Yeah.
Where's the disposable income to then invest here in the next generation of people who would be those potential housing providers? They're not going to be there. So like you said, small scale developers, people who've got the capital in the to do those kind of things. I think it's pretty well protected. And like Tim said, we live on an island. It's not getting any bigger. The green belt is still very much protected. So,
Yeah.
I don't know whether I've answered your question.
And like you said, the challenge you mentioned before with Labor and the areas that are opening up for planning, it's like, can you actually build on them? Like what?
Yeah.
Can you actually do that or not?
Yeah, because if the infrastructure's not there, then no one's going to live in it.
But still, again, that's why there is a big opportunity to develop unused stock or rundown stock, old commercial buildings, old houses, rundown properties, convert them into livable, good accommodations. Still works really well.
Yeah.
That's really useful. So more projects to do with you guys then.
Well, I think the HMO market, especially in the co-living market, but also like the assets, the conversion assets market is going to be very, very lucrative for people. Yeah. Because the commercial property is cheaper to buy at the moment as well. So I think that's probably going to continue.
Yeah, there's going to be a good element of repurposing that will work really well.
Repurposing those would be really useful. I think that's going to get a lot of yeses from a local planning perspective as well. So there's lots of opportunity there. And then obviously, I don't see the HMO market slowing because you need to live somewhere, and the hardest thing for people to do is the headroom on affordability to rent a single tenanted property. A single let property at the moment is really high. Yeah. So for a 2 up 2 down in poorer locations in Manchester, I think I looked about 6 months ago, and the cheapest one I could find within 10 miles of Manchester was £800. The cheapest rental property.
Yeah,
that is absolutely mental. From a property perspective. So if you're looking at like the average, if you want to live in a good one, you're looking at 1100 plus 20.25 or whatever the multiplier is to be able to afford that.
Yeah, like there's a lot of average sort of studio flats at £1,100 a month, aren't there? In that area, so affordability for that is what 2.5 times we work out. So what's upwards of 25k you have to earn to live in that studio flat. So the next best option, we get bills included, a nice brand new co-living room at £750 in Warrington or 700 in Warrington.
Yeah,
it's a much more affordable option.
Yeah.
Or we could all be wrong. They'll hit the targets, they'll build loads of different stuff, and then we just all have to cry ourselves to sleep overnight. But I just can't.
But again, even if they hit that target, it's probably still as it's, the supply and demand is still as it is at the moment, roughly.
Yeah.
Or even slightly worse still. So it's going to get. I think the curve's going to get worse from a supply and demand perspective before it gets better. I can't see.
Right.
Great.
Does that answer it?
Good question.
Lovely. So we probably went too far in that question, actually. But
never talk about politics, race,
dangerous stuff.
Absolutely. We'll carry on and talk about dogs. How about that? Everyone loves dogs. Right. Okay. So thank you very much, Simon. Thanks for making yourself one of the cool kids for a podcast for a change. And we'll say thank you very much for watching. If people want to get in touch with you, how would they do that? Your LinkedIn.
Through you, I am on LinkedIn.
Don't.
Yeah.
Don't is fine.
More if people want to get in touch with my fellow shareholders, James is at the Monocle Cafe in Macclesfield.
That's Monocle Cafe in Macclesfield.
Yeah, and people might find me there, but they'll definitely find my son James there. He's an investor as well now.
Yeah. What kind of food do they provide?
He does fantastic cookies. He's well known for his cookies.
Cookies in Macclesfield.
Nice.
Macclesfield cookies.
Good coffee.
The Monocle Cafe.
The Monocle Cafe
Chestergate in Macclesfield.
Lovely.
Shameless plug for his business.
There you go. That's how to get in touch with you. Right. Thank you very much for joining us. And thanks once again. And we will catch you on the next one. Bye for now.
Cheers.
Thank you once again for joining us on the Financial Freedom Podcast, sponsored by us at Property Portfolio Building. If you want to get in touch with us about today's podcast or any of the learning topics that we've gone through today, you can email us at podcast@invest-prop.co.uk or get in touch with us with whichever your social media platform of choice is. If you think you would add value to us as a guest on this podcast, you can please get in touch and let us know what you would be able to talk to us about. Other than that, we wish you well on your financial freedom journeys. And once again, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you on the next one.